Hello, everybody that joined us today. My name is Carla, and I'm a career mentor here at Avocademy, and I'm here with Diego. Diego, my first question for you is going to be to tell me a little bit about what you were doing before enrolling into Avocademy and where you're currently working now. And oh, hi, Fabi. I don't know if you were able to catch that as well, but that's going to be my question for both of y'all.
Awesome. Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for joining. So my name is Diego, like Carla said, and prior to UX UI design, I was a teacher for 3 years. Straight out of undergrad, I decided to do some teaching because I was really unsure of what to do. And then I don't need to tell you guys about how the pandemic changed a lot of the ways that we live life. And yeah, I decided to that I needed a change in my work-life balance and just my overall a career that had a better trajectory in the long run and that would help me achieve my long-term like life goals and financial goals. And I consider myself as someone who's like very creative. So UX UI was I think it truly found me. I well, I won't answer more. I'll wait. But yeah, that's what I was doing before product design. I was just an elementary school teacher for 3 years.
And where are you currently working now, Diego?
All right, I left out that part of the question. Yeah, so now I just started a position at a company called Trails. It is a nonprofit that focuses on mental health outreach, as well as social emotional curriculum and mental health curriculum for schools, primarily in Michigan, but also around the country. I'm not in Michigan, I'm in Austin, Texas. But yeah, that's where I landed. My title is a product designer.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Diego. Fabi, if you want to explain a little bit about what you used to do before enrolling in Avocademy and where you're currently working now, that'd be super awesome.
Yeah, sure. So welcome everybody. What I was doing before was I was in healthcare, and specifically the area of healthcare that I was working in was physical therapy. So I was there since 2015, and I love the job. Love it, love it. But healthcare is healthcare. And so I had also learned about UX design during that time, like 2015, 16. So I had an awareness of it. And every now and then I would read up something about it or look over. One of my friends had taken the course over here in Washington called General Assembly, right? Yeah. She took General Assembly and she started working as a UX designer, I think around that time as well, 2016. So I'd never had time to actually dive into it, but I was aware of it. And something that happened in healthcare was we have our patients and then we also have these documentation tools. And we have to manage our time in the way like, hey, we're busy with the patient, and then we also have to type, and sometimes not everybody is tech savvy. And so these documentation tools can actually hinder our work in a way. And so, thinking about the experience of that as a working person kind of got me thinking more about it. So as the years went by, I had that in the back of my head. And then as all of y'all know, like Diego mentioned, pandemic hits, life changes. I was like, I have time because I took a break from healthcare and I had more time to really dive into it, into UX. And I was like, I need to do this. I need to switch over now. Now is the time. So that's how I got into it. And I found Avocademy. I also was working, I decided to work remotely as a language teacher because I love languages. So I taught English, Spanish, Russian. So that's a little bit more of my background that I use to leverage to find a job fully in UX. And now I am currently working at an agency local to, well, near DC. So we work with federal clients.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations both on getting jobs. Like that's super exciting. And one of the questions is actually how soon did you find work after the programs? So after you completed your portfolio within Career Jumpstart, and then we can dive a little bit deeper into like what both of them are. I'll explain it later.
Yeah, so I answered it in the chat as well, but in case anybody missed it, it took me 3.5 months to find a job. Yeah, and I think it's easy to lose patience, but my friends and family and the Avocademy mentors were there for me throughout the process, and they always reminded me to keep my head up high, and that especially right now it's a bit of a rough market, but as long as I was consistent and patient, that something would come my way, and sure enough.
That's awesome. What about you, Fabi?
Yeah, I was trying to do the calculations in my head right now. It's like time is just, I don't even know what year we're in. I think it was about 5 or 6 months for me to land this current role that I'm at, I believe. And I can go, if anyone has questions as to why I think that may have happened. Honestly, as we got coached as well in the CJ and Career Jumpstart, following Maka's advice, there may be some self-doubt that goes on, but as long as we put into practice the advice from the mentors and the advice that we have at the daily CJ calls, that helps a lot. It is a very competitive field. So it's, some people got jobs like, 2 weeks, like, wow, super fast. Others, 6 months, like myself or more. So it depends. But CJ is great. It'll help you out.
Yeah, definitely. I'm seeing like the range of students getting jobs. Like there's not one specific average. Like people can get a job like 2 weeks after completing their portfolio. Like I've seen 6 months as well.
Yeah.
But I'll explain a little bit about to those that don't know what Foundations or CJ Career Jumpstart is. I'll explain a little bit about that. So Foundations is our educational course. That is where you'll learn UX research, UX design, UI design. You get to navigate through 6 different modules. They include videos, articles, and activities that are going to help you build your first project and portfolio website. And we offer unlimited mentorship. Now, Foundations right now is a maximum of 16 weeks long, and it's part-time. You dedicate about 10 to 20 hours a week. And then we have Career Jumpstart as a step 2, where we essentially help you complete your portfolio with real experience with like startups and nonprofits. It takes roughly about 2 months and a half to complete that portfolio. And after that, we help you get a job. And it takes about 2 to 6 months to get a job or so. So the entire process, it'll take about 8 to 12 months maximum to fully transition into UX and UI design. So I just wanted to kind of clear that up before anything. And then there is one question right here where it's, are there any additional educational courses or materials that you would recommend students to utilize while in the boot camp?
Yeah, so I well, the one that I really recommend is already part of Avocademy. And it's actually in some of the modules that it'll take you to this external website. It's called UXL, so UXCEL. UXL is great. I like to call it like the Duolingo of UX UI, because that's how it's structured. Like you learn like little bits of information, and you can dedicate like 5 minutes a day. You can dedicate an hour a day if you want. But yeah, I think the curriculum in Avocademy is pretty robust to that, so that if you do have doubts about something, it may be like some hidden resource that's in there. You just need to look for it. I will say, like for Figma, YouTube is great. For those of you that don't know, Figma is the software that we use in Avocademy, and not just Avocademy, but it's one of the industry standard tools, and it's fantastic. But yeah, definitely relied on YouTube a lot for that.
Yep, I agree. At the time that I took the foundations course, from the time I took foundations course until now, the program has grown a lot. And honestly, I think like every month there's things added to it. So it's become a very robust program. So I wouldn't have any like additional per se material or courses to recommend besides just focus on what they give you in the foundations course. That is going to be literally your foundation. Focus on that first. And then maybe I do have a recommendation for transitioning from after you end foundations and transition into CJ. If there's anything I would recommend, I would just recommend one book, and that is all, so that you can take it all in. And it's called Get Into UX. And the exact author's name I cannot pronounce, but I will type it in the chat. And he also has a YouTube video, he has a YouTube channel called like VA Experience, something along those lines. So I'll go ahead and just write it on the chat, but that'll help to give a very like high level, big picture view that I think will help from that transition from foundations to DJ. And then he also recommends a bunch of other things. So yeah, don't want to overwhelm with too much information. I think foundations covers it pretty much.
But thank you for those additional resources. I know that sometimes people don't know where to find them because there's so much out there. I love UXL too. Like it's so fun to use. It's like a little game. It's the best. Okay, so I have another question here that it's more about like your current roles as UX UI designers, and that is, what are some challenges you have come across working as a UX designer in your new roles, and was it discussed when enrolled into the bootcamp?
So I'll be upfront with everyone. I started my job like on February 8th. So this is like my third week, and it's not even a full week because we had Monday off. But in these like 2.5 weeks, honestly, some of the challenges are really just acclimating to the way that the team works. So this is definitely discussed in Avocademy, both in Foundations and in Career Jumpstart, which are the two phases of the program. But yeah, so the way we work in Avocademy is a waterfall environment, which is you go through, you're designing this product, whether it's a website or an app. You go through it and you design it in different stages, if you will. Whereas the job that I'm working in now, they work in an agile environment. So we do these things called sprints, where we're focusing on building out maybe like one or two things like in a 2-week period. And it's you do those different stages that you're taught in Avocademy, but you just do them a lot quicker, and you're not building out a full product. It's just like a feature, like maybe like one small button, or like a new screen or something like that. So I think that's been the biggest adjustment. Like I said, the foundational tools that I needed are there, but it's just definitely takes getting used to. And yeah, I think that's been the biggest challenge. And also coming into a company that has an established product, that has a design system that I need to learn, and has a Figma structure that I may not be used to. Really, it's things that I think would be challenges at any job. Just getting a hang of how things work and how your team members work. But yeah, I'll let Favi answer now.
So in my case, I work at an agency, and there's a difference between working at a large company versus a startup versus an agency. So I can speak about one of the clients that we work with, because my team, my design team, and another research team is integrated with a larger organization's sprint process. So like Diego mentioned, sprints are 2 weeks. And a specific challenge in my agency, and this may need a little clarification, I'll try to explain it in an easy way, but the challenge with my job is trying to mold, kind of incorporate ourselves into their sprint process. So I don't know if that's going to make any sense to you all. So feel free to ask follow-up questions. Working with different teams can be it's a fun challenge, though. I don't see it as like a stressful thing. It's a fun challenge, learning to work with other teams. So learning to work with developers. What do they expect from our design team? And what can we expect from them? Timelines. By the way, I have been managing timelines for our design team these couple of months. That was fun. But we're still trying to get used to that, and also working with product. So there's another challenge there. How does our design team better integrate with product? What does product expect from us? What do we expect from them? And let's see, product, and business, of course. Business has certain requirements that they need, certain features, for example. So it's a matter of communication with those various teams and our design team.
Bobby, I have a quick question for you. So because you work for an agency and they bring different clients for you guys, do the clients provide the developers, or does your agency provide the developers?
In the case that I'm talking about right now, since we are integrated, our client is a larger organization. They have their own development teams. In another project that I'm in, our agency sometimes provides developers, and sometimes they are also part of some other team. So it really depends on how these clients also operate. Some of the clients that we work with are large teams, some of them are smaller teams.
That's awesome. That's super cool. I have another question, and I think this one's specifically for Diego, because you mentioned the rough market. So somebody said, what do you mean by a rough market?
Yeah, so I think that maybe you're aware, you've been seeing the news, but there's just been a lot of layoffs in tech. But that's not to discourage anyone, because I think product design and UX UI design roles are some of the more like in demand roles. So I haven't turned off my LinkedIn job alerts, and every day it's like 30+ new jobs in your area. So yeah, it's definitely when I say rough, it's like it's important to accept that there have been layoffs, but there is room in the market for us newer designers. And like me, like I found my job in like a non-tech company. It's in the nonprofit education sector. And so, yeah, it's important to note that, you know, not everyone's going to land a job in like a quote unquote tech company. But there's other industries out there that have product designer roles.
Yeah, that's something that's, I think, important to mention as well, because I think the majority of people that are considering UX and UI design, they view it as like it's only a tech role. Like you can only dive into tech companies, which you can essentially dive into any industry out there and work as a UX and UI designer. So there's a lot of opportunities, even though there is unfortunately tech layoffs happening at this time. Um, I have a question about like the breakdown of the design bootcamp, the course curriculum, and including career advancements. But I think it'll be better if you email us at info@avocademy.com and we can give you a more in-depth information, or you can book a Zoom call with us specifically so we can dive more into like questions for you guys. The next question that I have is, do you feel like the current economy is in jobs in the UX space? Wait, do you feel like the current economy? I'm not sure I understand what she means. Also, do you feel like companies are transitioning away from remote work? So I'm guessing that if like the current economy is affecting the jobs in the UX space, and if companies are moving away from the remote work. Sorry, it took me a while to understand that question.
I would say that, um, like I mentioned, it's yes to an extent, but it's from what I've seen, it's been mostly like, again, companies that are considered part of the tech industry, but that's not, and even then, it's not all tech companies. It's just some, and there are tons of roles out there that are UX, UI designer roles and product designer roles for companies that are not in the tech industry. Um, yeah, I applied to so many jobs that had nothing to do with like I don't know, like your phone or like an app or something like that. Like they just have like an informational website or something like that. Um, and yeah, as far as remote work, I think um, this is something that's discussed in the course, but there's a lot of companies that um, are remote. Pretty much, like I think COVID just changed so much for the work that we do. My job is remote, but I applied to several roles that were um, in person here in Austin or hybrid. So if you have a preference, like those do exist. I mean, again, it might be depend on the city, but yeah, definitely, I think most of the jobs that you apply to on LinkedIn are going to be remote.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have an answer to the question because simply there are so many jobs, companies out there, and each one is different. And so, what I can say is that my agency, we also work remotely, but I'm also hired as one of their full-time UX designers, and they are local to me. So I go into the office every Thursday, but then I also have the opportunity to work remotely. So it just depends on the company culture and what if they see the value in working remotely. I've also heard of companies who have like startups who have a 4-day work week and things like that. So you just search them, you'll find them, or they will find you. And I think there's still a place out there for everybody.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's a lot of opportunities for both in-person, hybrid, fully remote. I think it's a matter of what you're looking for. That's why we create a plan to make sure that we're tailoring the job search specifically to that thing that you're looking for. I have a question that's a little personal. You guys don't have to share if you don't want to, but it's about like the average. You don't have to give the exact, but the average of your salary, your initial salary. It could be a range.
Yeah, so I think it definitely depends on the job. I think on the Avocademy website, it tells you like for grads for Career Jumpstart grads, it's an average of 85K. I did not land at the average, but coming from a teaching background, after 3 years of teaching, I was making 57K, and I'm now making 81K. So that's a big difference. And even though, you know, we all love a six-figure salary? Like to me, that's doable, and it's to me, I was like ecstatic. So yeah, it's definitely. I think I had good things coming my way.
Yeah, that's a good average.
Definitely.
Also, oh, sorry, keep in mind the level, right? Junior, mid, or senior. So I did see several people landing various levels of roles. So yeah, I think going into interviews, I would give them a range as well. So I think I don't remember exactly what I gave them, but like anywhere from 80 to 120. So I landed with something that I was really comfortable at and asked for a sign-on bonus. And I'll leave it at that. But great.
Love that for both of y'all. Someone's asking about a day in the life at work. If you want to explain a little bit about what that kind of looks like, even though you shared something similar to that before.
Yeah, so far my day in the life has been pretty um like I've been getting into a routine. Like usually, because my company works East Coast hours, I have the flexibility of working like my local time is 7 to 3. So I'm off at 3 p.m., which is great. But that being said, at 7 a.m., I'm like making my coffee and like checking my messages. We always have like a daily team meeting. And there's usually a few meetings thrown in there to discuss like um, a certain task that we're focusing on. During my downtime is when I focus on like tasks that are assigned to me. So as I mentioned, I recently started, so a bulk of that has been focused on like onboarding things and like trainings that sort of got me to understand the product a little bit better. So that's been the bulk of my time, but this week I actually started doing a little bit of research on the next sprint that we're going to work on in the next feature that's going to get built out, as well as some ideation and some low fidelity designs for again a feature that's going to get built out. But yeah, that's pretty much my days. They fly by, and yeah, what's nice about working from home is I can get up and grab coffee whenever I want or take my lunch whenever I want.
Day in the life. I used to watch YouTube videos to figure out what the day in the life was, and I would see like designers are like, oh, I get up and do my breakfast at home, get some coffee. So my days vary. I can talk about a week in the life. So in a week, I'm mostly focused on one of the client projects, which we work in sprints. And so talking specifically about the UX work, I do anything from user flows. I have done low fidelity wire flows, high fidelity mockups. We do have a design system. So I'll be busy with all of those at any given time. I also have time to prepare my presentations. So for example, yesterday I spent some time preparing a presentation, like what I was going to say, what I was going to ask some developers, and what I was going to say to the business, because today I had to give 2 presentations, one in the morning and one in the afternoon, to these 2 groups during 2 meetings. So my week is also filled with meetings. So specifically at this organization, we have a design review, which includes feedback about accessibility. So we have a 508 team. I think that's important to note. And then we also have reviews from the developers so that they can let us know, hey, you know, great, that's technically feasible, or nope, we're not able to build that. So we need to think about it again. And then there's also business again. Like I said, they have certain requirements, and they will also take a look at the content, at the copy, and will give feedback based on that. So I think that covers like a week, a week in the life of what I'm doing. And then day to day, I can also be involved in another project. So I'm currently involved in this main client project, big organization, and occasionally get pulled into another project where I am helping out with the user research portion of it. There's another designer who's already done visual design, and I'm helping with research. So there's also that thrown into the mix.
Awesome. And one of the questions is, which program do we learn within Avocademy? So I'm guessing you're talking about like softwares, and I'll answer that one really quick. So we teach Figma and Miro. Those are the 2 primary softwares that you'll be using, but we also teach Adobe XD, Sketch, and Envision, just in case you want to check that out. And for the most part, they're all included except for Sketch, that we don't have a free access code to that. I'm trying to see what other questions we have that we haven't answered. How important do you guys think that having a previous education within the job search was? And was it a must, or are the portfolios more important?
I mean, I've seen so many people on the Career Jumpstart Slack channel mention that they didn't have like a bachelor's degree or a master's degree for that matter, and they were able to land awesome jobs. So I think it's definitely possible. I feel like this is a tough question for me to answer, because I can't answer from like the point of view of a recruiter. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say focus on portfolio, and you'll also get mentorship about that portfolio. That's all.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think that a portfolio is extremely important. Having real client projects under your belt is going to help you so much. And it's also a matter of how you deliver yourself as a designer, the confidence that you have, the questions that you're answering throughout the interviews. That's going to make a huge difference when it comes to getting those jobs and what kind of salary ranges you'll be getting offered. So
I can chime in on something. Now Carla, you made me think about something.
of
Like
course,
the
yeah.
why. The why is because, you know, when the company is looking for a designer we're rarely working by ourselves. Like we're always integrated to a group. And so what these recruiters or hiring managers are looking for is, are we gonna hire somebody who looks good on paper because they have a PhD or whatever, but who can't communicate well with other people in my company? I don't think so. So they're looking at the portfolio and the way that you handle yourself so that they know, like, hey, this person is going to be a great addition to our team. We can communicate with them. That's what I thought of.
Definitely. Soft skills are huge, especially when we talk about communication skills. Like you're not just going to be talking to your team of designers, like you said, Fabi, like you also have to collaborate with developers, which can be a little challenging at first, or even like the stakeholders and pitching your ideas and your solutions to the stakeholders. So definitely having strong soft skills, a good portfolio, and your ability to sell yourself is what's gonna get you that job. A lot of people in the chat are saying thank you to both of y'all for answering those questions, by the way. What other job roles are out there that you can apply besides UX designer? Diego mentioned that he is a product designer. So product designers are UX researchers, UX designers, and UI designers all combined into one. It's somebody that does a little bit of everything. But there is definitely specialized roles, and there's a lot of them. You could be a UX researcher, UX designer, UI designer, visual designer, UX copywriter. There's so many different branches that you can go off of. Fabi, I don't know if you're specialized in any role or if you're also a product designer.
Yeah, my official title is just UX designer. And my role compromises of UX, UI, and research.
That's awesome. Some companies do that. They're like, oh, we need a UX designer, but it's really a product designer, somebody that does it all. Do you need to take the foundations course, or can you just enroll into Career Jumpstart? So I'll answer that one really fast. You can apply to Career Jumpstart, but to apply to Career Jumpstart, you need to turn in a portfolio with a project that showcases end-to-end process in UX and UI design, and complete a small design challenge on Figma. It takes a couple of weeks for that to get processed, and a mentor will let you know if you got approved into the program or if you need to work on certain red flags that come up within your portfolio. I don't know if you guys have anything to add on that.
What was the specific question? Sorry.
It was like, could you join a Career Jumpstart without taking foundations?
Oh, gotcha. No, I don't think I have anything else to add. I think you covered it.
Awesome.
I will say one thing about that. I have encountered people that didn't take foundations, and they're able to excel in Avocademy, but it is important to acknowledge that most of the people that are in the program do have a background with Avocademy, and so yeah, so if you do decide to join Career Jumpstart and it feels a little bit unfamiliar, like, don't be scared, because the people there are great.
Yeah, I think like also foundations does a really good job at like keeping up with like updated design trends, and it's really important when you start working with real clients from the get-go. So if you do have the skills, the best bet is to apply, see what the mentors tell you, and then they'll be the ones that will give you like a good trajectory on whether taking foundations or going through with Career Jumpstart. How long was y'all's interview process when you were applying to companies?
So with the job offer that I got, it took me the whole process itself took 2 months from like the date I applied to the day I got my offer. But it was also just really bad timing because the Thanksgiving holiday, the Christmas, New Year's holiday, yeah, and it's important to be mindful of that. While this was happening, like I did have other interviews, but I don't think no, not I think, I know I didn't make it past the second round with other companies. But yeah, it was a weird timeline, so I don't think I have the best answer for that.
It depends on the company, how big they are. If they're, again, are they an agency, a startup? Like, what are they looking for? So I remember one company or one startup. I remember this startup very well. I went through a round with the UX lead. Okay, no, first it was a great, amazing conversation with the recruiter. Like, could have stayed an hour with her. It was great. I walked through a little bit of a case study on my portfolio with her. Amazing. Then I went through interview with the UX design lead, then product, and then a developer or engineer, I think that's what her title was, and then a panel interview with the design team. And then they still wanted me to do another round for UI. So it was like 6 rounds for that specific startup. Other startups want you to do like a presentation of a case study. This particular startup did not want to do that, even though I had prepared something. Instead, they just pulled up my portfolio and they were like, we got a bunch of questions, and they just started questioning a bunch of things. And with the agency that I'm hired at, though, it was like an instant fit. I gave my presentation and they were like, you're hired. He basically called me and he was like, you're hired. So it depends on what the company is looking for. And if, during your interview, there's something that they see and they're like, oh, that's what we're looking for, they're going to make the decision faster or slower. So depends.
Yeah, every company is different. I mean, some companies have like super long rounds of interviews, others have shorter. Depends on the industry, company. There's so many different factors that go into it. Was it difficult for y'all to work on your first Career Jumpstart project, like the first client project? Did you find any challenges?
Um, yeah, I think it was a challenge. Just coming from foundations when you're working on a project all on your own and you really are, the mastermind behind this project. You make all the decisions, obviously implementing mentor feedback. But ultimately you get the final say. It was a challenge on my first project. Sort of taking all these ideas and making sure they work together. But that was honestly the most valuable part, and I'm glad that there was pushback on some things, and I'm glad there was compromise, because ultimately that's what it's going to be like in the real world. I think though there are roles out there where you're the sole UX UI designer. Ultimately there's always going to be compromise because there's so many different stakeholders. So yeah, I think the learning curve is also different when you have a real world project. You really do have to I don't know how to phrase this, so I hope this doesn't come out a bit clumsy, but just like you really just have to step up to the challenge, I guess, rise to the challenge. Yeah, because you're taking on a real world project with a real world uh, product that's out there in the world, and your designs are going to be out there. So yeah, you have to be willing to do additional research and put in the extra work, because honestly, this is a great program but you ultimately get what you put into it. You get out of it what you put into it. There you go.
So honestly, I don't remember. I'm actually looking back to my portfolio because it was a while ago that I participated in that. So I think, for me, a challenge was probably learning about the product itself. So it was a very a project that was heavy on the development term side, so engineering terms. So I remember, I think, having to get familiar with certain terminology. That may have been a challenge. Speaking about the team, honestly, all I remember, like the takeaway I had, that was a great team. So no complaints there. It was probably just that, learning certain terminology so that it would be translated into the design. Mhm. And I find that in my current job as well, like, well, we have to learn a certain product, and it takes time to learn about the product. It takes time to learn all of the acronyms that the client uses. They have all these acronyms. Every week I'm learning a couple new acronyms. So.
Definitely something to adapt to. Okay, so one of the questions is how much the Career Jumpstart is. So you can pay when you get a job. The cost right now for Career Jumpstart is 5,500, broken down into installments, where you can start paying 150 a month, and there is 0% APR for that, but we also offer other options that we can answer if you email us at info@avocademy.com. Let's see. Do you feel like having a lot of projects on your portfolio helps with getting your first job?
From the feedback that I've gotten, though it certainly helps because you have more experience to pull from, I think it's about the quality of your case studies. I only had 3 projects, still have 3 projects on my portfolio. So yeah, it's definitely about the quality, um, being succinct, and being able to state your design choices, and always focusing on the user, which might sound a bit like you may not know what I'm talking about, but yeah, always focus centering the user in your case studies and how you word them. I think that's the most important part, and just sitting down with yourself like one day and like really brainstorming, like, okay, like what did I learn from this case study? What are the takeaways? How can I potentially turn this case study, this project that I did, into valuable interview answers? So yeah, it's though it helps to have more projects, it's certainly possible. Avocademy tells us that a complete portfolio is 3 projects. So yeah, at least 3.
Yep, I totally agree with what Diego just said. It's quality over quantity for sure. And you have to keep in mind that a recruiter is probably going to be the first person who looks at your portfolio. So you might also want to like UX your own portfolio. If you guys have been learning about user research and usability tests, go ahead and usability test your portfolio. Like show it to some mentors, say, hey, what are you noticing about this? Is it clear what kind of designer I'm trying to convey that I am? Is it clear that I worked on this project and I focused on UI designs or whatever you're focused on? So yeah, make sure that your case studies are well written and to the point, because people are skimming through them and you want those points to jump out at them. So usability test your portfolio and your case studies.
Use that user experience, try to create the best user experience possible so recruiters can go through your portfolio very fast and they go straight into what they are looking for. Okay, so I have one last question. I know we had so many and we didn't get through all of them today, but if you email us your questions at info@avocademy.com, we will get through all of them. So my last question for both of y'all is, any advice to people who want to change careers into UX and UI design? And if you do have an advice, what would it be?
Okay, so the best advice that I can give you is to leverage your past experience. And I think Favi mentioned this earlier in one of her answers to a question, but it really is about like how you present yourself. Because if you're coming from a field that is like sort of unrelated to UX UI, people aren't going to know like what you do in your day to day. And I, as a teacher, as a former teacher, I should say, know that like what I did was very valuable and it had a lot of transferable skills, but not everybody knew that. So you have to believe in yourself, and be willing to take that risk, and be patient in the job hunt. Yeah, it took me a while, and there was times when I lost hope, but it is possible as long as you're consistent, and you remind yourself of your value, and don't let that imposter syndrome get to you. And just sorry, just one last thing, I promise. So, and what I mean by the leverage your background, like, so again, I have an education background. All in all, like through my job application process, I interviewed with 8 companies, and out of those 8, several went to second round, but 3 of those 8 were education related. So I think, like, relatively speaking, like that's about half, about half of them were education related. So definitely leverage your industry and past experiences, to help you get that job.
Yeah, I love what you said about imposter syndrome. I think a lot of people battle with that, and not only as juniors, but also all levels battle with imposter syndrome. And I've discovered that that is because of the way that generally the industry is, and also because in this field we're always learning, and there's like no regulatory field, if that makes any sense. So for example, Diego, maybe in education there's like a regulatory field, right? Someone is saying this is what teachers should do, right? Or like in healthcare as well, with physical therapy, this is what physical therapists should do and this is what they shouldn't do. But in UX it's like, what am I supposed to do, what can't I do? It's kind of like that. It's a little more vague. It's more creative. And so with creativity and freedom also comes a lot of insecurity at times, but get yourself some mentors and you'll be fine, and they'll help you through the imposter syndrome and navigating also as well, designing your career. I think my biggest takeaway from that is get yourself some mentors with an S, get many mentors. It helps a lot. It's helped me a lot. And I also love to mentor as well.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank all of you for coming to the call today. We went ahead and we dropped our email down below in the comments, and also a little discount code in case you guys want to sign up to our foundations course. Diego, Fabi, thank you so much for joining us. It was lovely chatting with you both today, and hopefully we get to chat soon. Take care. Bye,
Thank you, Carla.
everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
The discount code is in the chat.